Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at leadership in aviation.
Oh, this will be fun.
Yeah, I think it will be too. We've got some really interesting material to go through.
Yeah.
We've got some excerpts from a document that's specifically focused on pilot leadership.
Okay.
And then we've also got an article that looks at kind of broader leadership lessons we can learn from aviation in general.
Cool.
So,
Looking forward to it.
yeah, me too. And I think, what's interesting about this is, we always talk about leadership in sort of, the business world or,
Right.
just in general. But
Mm-hmm.
aviation has kind of, a very specific set of challenges.
Yeah, high stakes.
Extremely high stakes. Yeah,
People
absolutely.
lives on the line. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think there's a lot we can learn from
Right.
how leadership plays out in that world.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating to me is how much aviation leadership has evolved over the years.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's start with that evolution then.
Hey.
The pilot leadership document mentions this foolish tradition of silence,
Mm.
which honestly sounds a little ominous.
It does a bit, doesn't it?
What's the story there?
Well, for a long time, there was this unspoken rule in aviation that pilots, especially captains, shouldn't speak up if they had doubts or concerns.
Really?
It was seen as a sign of weakness.
Oh, wow.
Imagine that pressure, like feeling like you couldn't voice a potentially life-saving observation.
Yeah, that's incredible. I can see how that would be a huge problem.
Huge. Yeah.
I mean, was it just about ego or were there other factors at play?
Well, I think it was definitely a different era in aviation.
Okay, so-
There was this strong emphasis on hierarchy and authority, which sometimes came at the expense of open communication.
Gotcha.
Almost like never question the captain kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which, we now know is a recipe for disaster.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how did we shift from that culture of silence to the modern emphasis on teamwork and communication in the cockpit?
It was a gradual process driven by, some hard lessons learned from accidents.
Yeah.
Investigators started to see how this silence is strength mentality was actually contributing to incidents.
Really?
Yeah, it became clear that valuing everyone's input, even the newest crew members, could be the difference between, a safe flight and a tragedy.
That makes me think about those, black box recordings that you hear about
sure.
in accident investigations.
Oh, yeah.
Did analyzing those conversations help to kind of change the approach to leadership?
Absolutely. By studying what went wrong in those critical moments,
Uh-huh.
experts could identify communication breakdowns and the dangerous consequences of, failing to speak up.
Right.
It really highlighted the need for a more collaborative and inclusive approach to leadership in the cockpit.
So how does this emphasis on teamwork then translate into specific leadership styles?
Well, the document outlines 4 main leadership styles:
Okay.
directive coaching, supportive, and delegating. But here's the key. A skilled pilot, or any leader for that matter, knows that there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
It's about adapting your style based on the situation and the experience level of your team.
Can you give us an example of how that might play out
Yeah.
in a real-life scenario?
Absolutely. Imagine a scenario where a flight crew is dealing with a sudden equipment malfunction.
Okay.
If you've got a highly experienced co-pilot, a captain might take a more delegating approach,
Like sense.
trusting them to handle certain tasks while they focus on the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But what if the co-pilot is less experienced?
Right.
Then the captain might need to adopt a more directive or coaching style,
Okay.
providing clear instructions and guidance to ensure everyone's on the same page and working together effectively.
Gotcha.
You see, so it's all about assessing the situation,
Right.
the competence and commitment of your team, and adapting your leadership style accordingly.
So it sounds like being a pilot in command requires a pretty diverse skill set.
It does.
I mean, beyond just technical flying skills,
Uh-huh.
they need strong communication, decision-making, conflict resolution skills.
Right.
And going back to our discussion about the culture of silence, they need to be able to create an environment where everyone feels comfortable speaking up.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge.
The document also mentions one-upmanship as a potential pitfall in the cockpit. What does that look like in this context?
Well, imagine a situation where a pilot, maybe driven by ego or insecurity, tries to assert their dominance or expertise at the expense of the team.
Okay.
Maybe they dismiss another crew member's suggestion or insist on doing things their way, even if it's not the safest or most efficient approach.
So it's not just about being quiet.
Right.
It's also about making sure that communication is productive and respectful,
Exactly.
even when there are disagreements.
And this is where the document really emphasizes the importance of mutual support.
Okay.
It's not about being a yes man to the captain, but rather about creating a culture where everyone feels valued and their contributions are taken seriously.
Gotcha.
That kind of environment leads to better decisions, improved morale, and ultimately a safer flying experience.
Okay, now I'm really curious to dive into those 11 leadership lessons from the aviation article.
All right.
Seems like there's a lot we can all learn
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
how pilots handle high-pressure situations.
Definitely. And what's fascinating is how these lessons go beyond aviation and can apply to leadership in any field.
Okay.
So let's take a closer look at a few that might resonate with you. The first one that comes to mind is charting the course. You know,
Okay.
it's all about having a clear vision and strategy, just like a pilot plans their flight path before taking off.
So it's not just about knowing where you want to go, but also like
Right.
how you're going to get there.
Exactly. And the article emphasizes that it's not a solo endeavor.
Okay.
It's about involving your team in the planning process,
Uh-huh.
making sure everyone understands the big picture and how their individual roles contribute to the overall success of the mission.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the captain who just like announces the destination
Right.
without
Yeah.
consulting the crew.
Exactly.
And speaking of crew, the lesson about using collaboration and teamwork also really stood out to me.
Yes. The article uses the analogy of an entire aviation team,
Yeah.
from pilots and air traffic controllers to ground crew and maintenance technicians, all working together seamlessly
Wow.
to ensure a safe and successful flight.
So it's a reminder that leadership isn't about doing everything yourself.
Right.
It's about empowering your team and fostering that collaborative spirit.
Absolutely. And that leads us to weathering the turbulence.
Okay.
Aviation is all about dealing with the unexpected, sudden
Mhm.
storms, mechanical issues, you name it.
Yeah, you have to be ready for anything.
You do, and the article suggests that this is a valuable lesson for leaders in any field.
So it's about being able to adapt
Precisely.
when things don't go according to plan.
It's about having the resilience and adaptability to navigate through challenges without losing sight of your ultimate objective.
Okay.
Think about Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors.
Oh, yeah.
She stepped into that role during a time of major crisis for the company,
Right.
with recalls and safety concerns making headlines.
That must have been so challenging.
It was, but Barra's leadership really shone through.
Ah,
She focused on rebuilding trust, implemented rigorous safety checks, and ultimately steered the company back on course.
wow.
Her ability to weather the turbulence is a prime example of how aviation leadership principles can be applied to even the most complex business challenges.
Okay, so we've talked about planning, collaboration, and adaptability.
Right.
What about that like split-second decision-making that pilots are known for?
Yeah.
The article mentions something about managing a crisis.
Yes. Now, this is where the story of Captain Chesley Sullenberger comes in.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Talk about grace under pressure.
The miracle on the Hudson, right? When both engines failed on his plane shortly after takeoff,
Right.
and he had to make an emergency landing on the Hudson River.
Yeah. Sullenberger's actions that day are a textbook example of crisis leadership. He didn't panic.
Right.
He assessed the situation, quickly communicated clearly with his crew and air traffic control, and executed that water landing flawlessly,
Wow.
saving everyone on board.
It's incredible to think about the level of focus and composure required in that kind of situation.
Absolutely. And the article emphasizes that a leader's ability to make those split-second, life or death decisions is critical,
Right.
not just in aviation, but in any field where the stakes are high.
So what can we learn from Sully's experience? Like, how can we cultivate that kind of calm under pressure?
Well, it's not about becoming superhuman.
Right.
It's about having a solid foundation of knowledge, experience, and training combined with clear communication and a focus on the well-being of your team.
It makes me think about those simulations that pilots go through. Do you think that kind of preparation plays a role
Oh, absolutely.
in developing those crisis management skills?
By practicing for a wide range of potential scenarios, pilots develop the muscle memory and mental agility to respond effectively when the unexpected happens.
Okay.
It's about being prepared for the worst while still hoping for the best.
So even if we're not facing like life or death situations in our daily lives, there's a lot we can learn from how pilots train for and manage crises.
Definitely, whether it's a major project going off the rails or a sudden shift in the market, Those moments require us to tap into that same level of calmness, focus, and strategic thinking.
Okay, so we've covered some pretty inspiring examples of leadership in action.
They have.
But what about the flip side?
Yeah.
What are some red flags that might indicate poor leadership, especially in a high-stakes environment like aviation?
Well, the pilot leadership document actually has an entire section devoted to that.
Oh, really?
It's called Red Flags,
Okay.
and it highlights some warning signs to watch out for.
Okay, let's hear it. What are some of those red flags?
One of the big ones is a lack of clear communication.
Okay.
If information isn't flowing freely between team members, or if there's a sense that people are hesitant to speak up, that's a major red flag.
Makes sense. We talked earlier about how that culture of silence can be detrimental to family
Exact. Another red flag is when tasks aren't being prioritized effectively.
stuff. Okay.
This can lead to confusion, wasted effort, and ultimately compromised performance.
And I imagine that's especially dangerous in aviation, where precision and timing are so critical.
Absolutely. The document also mentions failing to address disagreements constructively.
Okay.
If conflicts are swept under the rug or ignored, they can fester and ultimately undermine team cohesion.
So it's about creating an environment where it's safe to disagree,
Right.
as long as those disagreements are handled respectfully
Exactly.
and with the goal of finding the best solution.
And let's not forget about the importance of recognizing and valuing everyone's contributions.
Right? If certain team members feel like their input isn't being taken seriously or their expertise is being dismissed, that's another red flag.
It can create resentment, erode trust, and
Wow.
ultimately lead to a decline in performance.
Yeah, these red flags seem pretty universal. Right?
Yeah.
Even though they're presented in the context of aviation, I can see how they'd apply to any team or organization.
You're absolutely right. Whether you're leading a team at work, managing a project, or even navigating your personal relationships, being aware of these red flags can help you identify potential problems before they escalate.
So what's the takeaway here? What should someone do if they start noticing these red flags in their own environment?
Well, the first step is simply to acknowledge that there's a problem.
Okay.
Often we tend to ignore or downplay those warning signs, hoping they'll just go away on their own.
But as we've seen from the aviation examples, ignoring problems can have serious consequences.
Exactly. So once you've acknowledged that there's an issue, the next step is to try to understand the root cause.
Yeah.
Why is communication breaking down? Why are tasks not being prioritized effectively?
It sounds like it's about having those tough conversations and being willing to ask some uncomfortable questions.
It definitely takes courage, but addressing those underlying issues is essential for creating a more positive and productive environment.
Okay, so we've talked about recognizing red flags and taking steps to address them.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the proactive side of leadership? Like, how can we set ourselves and our teams up for success from the start?
Well, the aviation article actually touches on that with a lesson called continually monitoring.
Okay.
It's about how pilots are constantly checking their instruments,
Right.
looking out for any signs of trouble, and making adjustments as needed to stay on course.
Yeah, the article suggests that leaders can apply this same principle to their own work.
Yeah. Okay.
It's about establishing systems for feedback, tracking progress, and staying attuned to any changes or challenges that might arise.
So it's not a set it and forget it kind of approach.
Oh.
It's about being actively engaged
Exactly.
and constantly seeking information.
That can help you make better decisions.
And that reminds me of another important lesson from the article, communicating effectively.
Okay.
Pilots are in constant communication with their crew, air traffic control, and sometimes even other aircraft.
Right, they're sharing information, coordinating actions,
Exactly.
making sure everyone's on the same page.
Precisely. And this highlights the importance of clear, concise, and timely communication in any leadership role.
It's about making sure that everyone has the information they need to do their jobs effectively,
Right.
and that everyone feels comfortable speaking up if they have concerns or questions.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to the idea of creating a culture of mutual support and psychological safety.
Yeah, where people feel empowered to share their perspectives,
Uh-huh.
even if they disagree with the leader or the majority opinion.
Exactly. Because as we've seen from the examples we've discussed, those dissenting voices can often bring valuable insights and help prevent potential disasters.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive.
It has.
We've explored the evolution of leadership styles in aviation,
Yeah.
the importance of adaptability and situational awareness, and the critical role that communication plays in creating a high-performing team.
And we've seen how these principles, while rooted in aviation, can be applied to leadership in any field.
So thinking about everything we've discussed today, What's the one thing you hope our listener will take away from this deep dive?
Well, if I had to choose just one takeaway, it would be the importance of creating a culture where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to contribute their best work.
Yeah.
Whether you're leading a team in the cockpit or in the boardroom, that's the foundation of true leadership success.
And remembering that leadership isn't just about authority.
Right.
It's about inspiring and empowering others
Yes,
to achieve shared goals.
exactly. And that requires a combination of skills.
Hmm.
Strong communication adaptability, the
Yeah.
ability to manage crises effectively, and that unwavering commitment to fostering a positive and supportive team environment.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with one final thought.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the lessons we can learn from pilots in the world of aviation,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's important to remember that leadership is a journey, not a destination.
It's a process of continuous learning, growth, and adaptation.
And there's always room for improvement no matter how experienced or skilled we become.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep challenging yourself to become the best leader you can be.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've gained some valuable insights that you can apply to your own leadership journey.
From first officer to captain, master your airline command course. Are you ready to shatter the skies and take your aviation career to the next level? Whether you're just starting out or aiming for your airline command, Captain James is your ultimate co-pilot for success. With over decades of experience in both the Air Force and top airlines, Captain James has flown everything from fast jets and the P-3 to the Boeing and the Airbus, racking up countless hours in the sky. His unmatched insider knowledge and thrilling cockpit stories are packed into his best-selling Professional Airline Pilot series and his Skycall YouTube podcast. Buckle up. It's time to fly high. What you'll get is the Airline Command Prep course. You'll master the technical know-how, the standard operating procedures, and the leadership skills needed to take command of any flight. Next is the Airline Pilot Interview Manual. Nail your interview with insider tips, real-world scenarios, and expert strategies that will make you the top to pick. And finally, aircraft-specific guides that cover 600-plus technical questions for every aircraft. Become a pro on both the Airbus and Boeing. Get ready to impress with your technical knowledge and join Captain James on his Skycall YouTube podcast for exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the aviation world. From interview hacks to emergency handling, airline operations, and real stories from the flight deck. This is your personal seat in the cockpit. It's time to level up your skills and knowledge with expert insights and answers to your most burning aviation questions. Start your journey now with Captain James's books on Amazon Kindle. The QR code is on the screen and the links are below. This is your first-class ticket to a successful aviation career. Become the pilot you were meant to be, with Captain James by your side.